Government has access to almost every single detail of our private lives because they know whom we communicate with, where we travel, they know what we buy, they know, they can almost guess what we're thinking just by checking what we are doing on the internet. What are we looking for? What are our searches? What sites do we have subscriptions to? So they have all this information, but at the same time they can control everything we do. But we as citizens cannot control the government because, hello Mark, because all those control mechanisms have been one by one watered down or eliminated. And that is why I started by saying it is an issue of democracy. It is not an issue of privacy. Because in a democracy, it is not the government that controls the citizens. It's the citizens that control governments. And all those control mechanisms have been eliminated because we have no right to get information on what they use the data for. There is no adequate legal protection. I'm actually sort of testing the system myself at the moment, and I can tell you it is not easy to get information on what they use your personal data for. And why I'm so worried about this is that we may all trust our governments at the moment, or let's assume that we all trust our governments. But if we create instruments that allow governments uncontrolled and unlimited control over citizens, would we still trust a different government? If I look at my own country, where extreme right-wing parties have huge popular support at the moment, I mean, I dread the day that parties like that are elected into power and they can use the instruments that we have created now. And if people ask me, so what can go wrong? I often say to them, and I'm not being cynical, well, ask my colleagues from the former communist countries. They can tell you. They can tell you. And I think that's something we should avoid. And maybe the last parallel I'll make, and then I'll shut up, is we've all of course watched the Olympic Games in China in recent weeks, and of course there was a lot of protest against the Chinese government and people who wanted to boycott, and then there was even President Bush who reminded China that they should respect human rights. And everybody's protesting, and rightfully so, that the big companies such as Google and Yahoo would actually comply with laws by the Chinese government requiring them to submit their customer records. And the Chinese government says, but this is in the interest of national security. And we all say, that's outrage, that's a disgrace, and China is a dictatorship, and that's all true. But what is happening in the Western world? Our governments are requiring Google and Yahoo to submit their customer records in the interest of national security. So what's the difference? I can tell you what the difference is between a democracy and a dictatorship. In a democracy, governments can be held to account. In other words, they can be controlled by citizens. So I hope by using this example I've made clear what I mean and where my concern lies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie.